Hey bookworms. So I want to chat with you about this book. This is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I think that's how you pronounce it, Sager. I found this book at a TJ Maxx for $9.99 and I had to get it because Survive the Night was so cool. I loved this book. Like, this one was one of those that I was like, are you kidding me? Like, at the end. But I'll get more into this at some point. Okay. And this is one that I have not read yet. I got it at Marshall's for $7.99. I love that TJ Maxx and like Marshall's, they have a book section now. And this one I got in, was it DC? I think it was DC, Washington, DC, because I hit a couple places. So I was in DC, Jersey, Baltimore, New York, and then I like made my way back. But yeah, I think I got it in DC. Anyway, they had a bunch of books. So I got a few, which I will get into, but this one, I started it on the plane, like right before the plane, and then on the plane, yeah, started it as soon as I got on the plane, and then we had like a layover and just, you know, the whole thing. So I started it and finished it. It was so good. I mean, I had a lot of time to read, right? But it was good. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis on it. It is, if you know anything about Riley Sager, it is going to be a thriller, mystery, but this one actually gets supernatural. So I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis and then I'm gonna spoil everything for you. So let me get into it. It says, be careful what you watch for. We got a creeper. Okay, Casey Fletcher, a recently widowed actress trying to escape a streak of bad press, has retreated to the peace and quiet of her family's lake house in Vermont. Armed with a pair of binoculars and several bottles of bourbon, she passes the time watching Tom and Catherine Royce, the glamorous couple living in the house across the lake. They make for good viewing. A tech innovator, Tom, is powerful, and a former model, Catherine, is gorgeous. One day on the lake, Casey saves Catherine from drowning, and the two strike up a budding friendship. But the more they get to know each other and the longer Casey watches, it becomes clear that Catherine and Tom's marriage isn't as perfect as it appears. When Catherine suddenly vanishes, Casey immediately suspects Tom of foul play. What she doesn't realize is that there's more to the story than meets the eye, and that shocking secrets can lurk beneath the most placid of surfaces. So she's creeping on them, and she's looking in the window, and it all goes down. Okay, so if that sounds interesting to you, or if you just want to fall asleep, that's cool. I'm going to tell you about the story. So we start with Casey, right? And Casey, her mom is actually an A-list actress, and Casey's an A-list actress, but her mom is like a really big deal. Like, she's like a Nicole Kidman or like an Angelina Jolie. Like, everybody knows her mom, Lolly Fletcher. And her father was also like in the industry, but he wasn't as like a famous name like her mom. So Casey took her mom's name to like get parts and, you know, get ahead and such. Okay, so Casey, she's like, you know, doing her thing. She's like on Broadway and doing plays and movies, TV shows, like she's everywhere, right? And on one of the sets, she meets Len, and Len, he's like doing something on set, or like he works like in her industry, and they fall in love. So her and Len, they just have this like quick like connection. They get married and they just like fall in love. Well, the house across the lake, it's this like really cool place out in like New England, Vermont. It's called Lake Green, and it's been in Casey's family for like ever, because Casey, her great-grandfather, he built like the first house out there, and it's like this beautiful massive like lake house mansion, and it oversees a beautiful lake, right? And then over time other houses started building up around there, but everybody knows that that's like they're the first, right? So Len like really takes a liking to this lake, the lake house, and there's this beautiful tree that grows like in a weird place in the middle of the lake. So he just feels like it's like a spirit. Like Len, he's very philosophical, and he's like telling Casey's like this tree, you know, it means so much to him, and he just really loves it. But Casey doesn't care. Like Casey really likes just being in New York City. That's where they live most of the time. She works and she does do a lot of Broadway and stuff, so she just doesn't really care about the lake house. Like she doesn't appreciate it like that. But Len does. So she and Len, you know, we're kind of going back and forth in the story in the beginning, where like, you know, he travels a lot for work, she travels a lot for work, but he really enjoys like going back and spending time there. So one day they are, you know, they're out there vacationing and just spending time, and she wakes up, and one of the other neighbors, who's a really good friend of hers, he comes by and he wakes her up. They were sleeping in the basement, because this is like a massive house, like it's not just like a whatever basement. She was asleep, and this guy comes by. She wakes up because she hears the door, and she realizes Len's not there. So when she realizes that, this guy is like, hey, you know, is everything cool? Like your door was like kind of open, or like he tells her something like that. And she's like, well, what's up? He's like, where's Len? And she's like, I don't know, like I haven't seen him. And she starts kind of looking around the room, and like all his fishing stuff is gone. So she's like, oh, he probably went fishing. Oh, because he saw the boat. That's what it was. But he couldn't see Len. And he asks her, like, did he go fishing? And she scans like the room really quickly, and she sees that like his hat and like his little things, and he takes this little box. It's like a little fishing box. He always takes that with him, and like this like one green hat. And she's like, oh, he must be, because it's not here. So they go out looking, and they don't find Len right away, but they realize that there was an accident on the water, and he's gone. Now Casey is like, she loses it. Casey has this cousin, Marnie, but she's also her like manager and, you know, friend. Her mom is kind of a momager as well, but Casey kind of feels like her mom is just like that, because like her mom doesn't want Casey embarrassing her, right? Like just this whole thing. So we're kind of fast forwarding to like, it's been over a year, a little over a year since Len's passing. They ended up finding him later, a little after they searched, and yeah, he passed away. And it's just been a really rough year for Casey, right? She ends up spiraling. She hits rock bottom. She she has an alcohol problem, so she's drinking a lot, right? And she gets kicked off a show. Like she shows up drunk, and it's just like one thing after another with Casey's life. And her mom is like, you know what, I'm tired of this. You are just getting bad press. Everybody is like, she can't go anywhere without the paparazzi following her. She has a famous mother. She's a famous person. I mean, it's chaos. So her mom sends her to the lake house at Lake Green. Like the point of her going to Lake Green is to like rehabilitate, get off of the alcohol, like just chill out, stay out of the public eye, be cool. But Casey's depressed. So like she wakes up and she has like a shot of bourbon or a shot of vodka or whatever she's gonna drink that day. And all day throughout the book, you really get like her drinking schedule, and where she just like falls asleep outside. Like she's depressed. Like it's literally the worst time of her life, right? And she's like, whatever. So she's out on the water, and she sees something. Like she sees somebody in the water, and she's like, oh my god, like Len is coming back. Like everything, all her trauma, she's triggered. She dives in, she's swimming, and she pulls somebody out, right? And she knows that this person is gone. Like, she feels it, she sees it, she can feel the weight of the body, and she's like, this person's gone, but she's still like, maybe we can do something, like maybe I can help. So as she's pulling this girl out of the water, the girl just starts coughing, and like heavy, just like, I got air, right? And now Casey has her in the boat, and she's looking at her, and she's just thinking like, no, like, you were gone. Like, I know it, I saw it, I felt it, but now the girl's up, right? And so she's laying there looking at her, and they're kind of like looking at each other for a second, and everything's kind of weird. And then they finally start speaking to one another, and they introduce themselves. So Casey tells her like, hi, I'm Casey, and the girl says, yeah, I know you, like, I recognize you, like, you're super famous. She's like, I'm Catherine. And Casey's like, yeah, I know you, like, you're also super famous. Like, Catherine is a model, like Vogue, and she does she's all over New York City. Like, her pictures are on every billboard, like, she's everywhere. So they have this like little funny moment where they're just like, oh, like, we know each other, but obviously we don't know each other. And Catherine is just like grateful, and they exchange all that, and she tells Casey, like, my husband and I were now living right there. And Casey's like, yeah, I thought I saw somebody moving in, whatever, right? So after that, it's just kind of one of those things where she gets her home, and Casey goes back, and she's just back to drinking. So Casey is at home, and she's drinking, of course, and she finds these binoculars, and the binoculars were for bird watching. So they're really cool. Like, they're meant for you to be able to get up close, but not too close where everything's distorted, like some binoculars. So they're just like super clear. Well, she finds them because they were lens, and Casey was like, whatever. She starts looking around, and now she's peeking in their windows because they have it's like the newest house on this lake, right? There's only so many houses. One of them is this couple that's like hardly ever there because a lot of people just like vacation there. Another one is like a permanent resident, that's Eli, and Casey's known him forever, like since she was a little girl, because this house has been in her family forever. So Eli's house, and then there's like another couple somewhere else, but this is like the newest house, right? It's beautiful, it's more modern, and it's just like a really nice house. So she sees it, and she's looking at the couple, right? She sees Tom and Catherine, and just like their ways and like what they're doing, and she's fine. And somebody comes up and creeps up on her, and she's like looking in these people's windows, like with the binoculars. And this guy, he's like, hi. She's like, what? Who are you? So this guy, super hot. Casey's already looking at him, and she's like, oh, he's like tall and built and handsome and all these things, right? He introduces himself as Boone, and he's like, hi, I'm Boone. I forgot the name of the couple, but this couple over here that they leave a lot, they gave him the job of coming and like doing repairs and just making sure that their house or their lake house looks good and all the things, right? And he knows the couple, and so they trust him to go out there, but Casey's never met him, right? So he's talking to Casey, introducing himself, and she's just like, and he obviously caught her what she's doing, and he tells her like, yeah, I've seen you on TV, and I know who you are. So they get to chatting, and Casey's like, she's kind of into him. But that's it. She just kind of asks, like, what are you doing out here? He's like, little odd jobs, and they hire me to do this, and so I'll be out here for a little bit. I'll, leave in a couple of months or whatever. Okay. So we have these little jump cuts, right? And it doesn't really give you a proper timeline. It just says before, now, right? Like, that's really it. So it jumps to like now. And now she's speaking with an officer, and a police officer or detective, and the detective is like telling Casey, you were in their house and whatever, just like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I didn't do anything and whatever. So you're kind of like, what's going on? Well, then the detective leaves. They're at Casey's, and you realize that Casey goes into a room and she's got somebody tied up on a bed, like hog-tied, right? And she's asking them, like, what did you do with Catherine? So we know that something's gonna happen to Catherine, right? Okay. Then we go back to before. So it's the next morning, and Catherine makes her way over to Casey's place, and she's like, hey, like, I just want to chit chat with you and say thank you for everything. And Casey's like, all right, whatever. So they kind of start talking about like life and whatever. And Catherine lets her know that things are not good with Tom. Like, she just starts telling her all her business. Like, she's like, everybody thinks that I'm just like this gold digger, and that, I stopped modeling because, I have all this money now. My husband's like this tech tycoon or whatever, but that's not true. She's like, I tell people that Tom made me stop, but really I just was so tired of being like just a pretty face and for people just using me for my looks. And Casey's like, okay. She's starting to see Catherine a little differently. Like, maybe Catherine is like a deeper person and the modeling was just to get her money or whatever, right? So then Catherine starts to share that Tom's actually pretty broke. So Tom has this app, it's called Mixer, and it's just like a way to like connect with people. It's like social media, whatever. So she's like, all of his money is tied up in Mixer. I pay all the bills. This house was like my idea. Like, I'm the one doing everything, and I'm just like so tired of him like always being on me. And like, she's like, I don't know, I just feel like he wants me gone so he can like take my money. And Casey's just like, okay, like that's a lot. So they're chit-chatting, and then Catherine's like, well, I gotta go. Like, she just like takes off and walks back to her house or whatever. So then later on that day, Eli comes over. Eli's the man that Casey's known like her whole life, and he's really cool, and he gets her liquor, and he gets her the wine, and he tells her, I don't love this. I don't like seeing you like this, but I understand that you're grieving, and you've just been going through so much that, I'm gonna do this for you. So they're chit-chatting, they're having some wine, they're talking or whatever. And then Tom and Catherine roll up on their boat, and Tom is just like, hey, Casey, and Casey's like, hi, they haven't met, but obviously his wife is like, this is the girl that saved my life. And so he starts chatting with Casey, and he's telling Casey, like, I tell her not to, just go out and do whatever she wants, and she doesn't listen to me, and, I'm so grateful for you. And it's just like a weird vibe, right? Well, he brings these 2 bottles of like this really expensive wine, and he's super proud of it. And he's telling Casey and Eli, like, these are $5,000 a bottle. Let's open it. And Casey's like, we don't have to do that. We got plenty of liquor here. And he's like, no. You saved my wife. And he's just like, he's like belittling Catherine a little bit and like just kind of being weird. So Casey's like, fine. Immediately, they haven't even got to start drinking. He pours some to, because Casey's still drinking hers. He pours a little bit for Catherine. Shortly after she starts drinking, she just starts being really weird, and she like collapses. Like, she's so tired. Well, now Casey's thinking, like, what's going on? Because she had already mentioned to Casey, like at some point when they were talking about her being in the water, she had told Casey, like, I'm a really great swimmer, but I think I got like a cramp or something, and I felt weird, and I just like shut down. Like, I don't even know how I drowned. Like, I just felt like something in my body was just like so strange, and I felt nauseous, and like I wasn't even here. Like, I disassociated, and I just crashed out in the water. Well, it happened happen there, but on land, right? It happens in front of everybody. So everybody's kind of freaking out, like, oh my God, Catherine, are you okay? And Tom's like, let me just get her home, like, you know, whatever. And he's pissed. And when Catherine fell, she was holding her glass and it broke everywhere. So Catherine kind of gets up and she's like, let me help clean it up. And Casey's like, no, 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 I don't want you to cut yourself. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Like, are you gonna be okay? And yeah, whatever. So he takes her. So Casey's already kind of like, well, that's weird. Like, I don't really know what to make of that. But and he like kind of discussed it, and she's telling you like, I just don't really trust that guy. And she starts getting like really invested in Catherine. So of course, what does Casey do that night? Spy. She starts spying in their house, and she sees Catherine is like on her computer. She's looking at stuff, and she's making these like weird faces. And then she gets on the phone, and then she sees Tom, because like this house is like all windows. She sees Tom get out of bed, and he's listening, looking for his wife. And then he's like creeping up on her, and he's listening to her conversation without her, like, you know, knowing that he's there. And Catherine's like on the laptop. She like closes it and everything, and then she's like, hey babe, you know, whatever. And that's it. They go to bed. And Casey is still like, okay, like this is weird, like something's up. And Boone comes over. No, Boone doesn't come over. Boone was outside, and she starts looking at Boone, and like Boone's like skinny dipping, and like it's just like this whole thing. Like Casey's just like out here being a creep. So at some point, Boone, she thinks that he sees her. Like she's like, can he see me? But like I'm in the dark. Like it just like feels weird. Just like whatever. I'm just gonna wrap this up. And she's drinking and thinking and just, you know, going through it by herself. So she like falls asleep for a bit, or like she kind of nods off, and then she wakes up. She starts looking around again, and she sees this like fight. Like Catherine, like they had went to bed, but then Catherine like got up, and Tom's like chasing her around in the house a little bit, not like running after her, but he's just like pacing, and he's like, come over here. Like you could see that they're like having an altercation. And Catherine, she like hits him in the face, and he like grabs her arm and she's like, get off me, whatever. And then like it settles down, the fight like settles down, and they end up going back to bed. Like there was just something going on between them. So Casey's like trying to be as invested as she possibly can, but then she ends up falling asleep outside. And she wakes up, like it's early morning. She wakes up because she hears a scream, like a loud scream. But she's asleep, and then she's like jolted up, and she doesn't see anything, or like she doesn't know what's going on. And a part of her is like, was I just drunk? And like, I didn't realize it. So she kind of lurks around for a bit, and then she's like, forget it. I'm gonna just go inside. She goes inside, goes to bed. So next day she wakes up, and at one point Catherine had texted her. And so she had Catherine's number, but she didn't give Catherine her number. So she thought that was kind of weird, because she was like, how did she get my number? And she's like, well, she probably searched me, because I search people all the time. Like I'm always looking and creeping. Like she may have just searched me and found my number. She's like, or maybe I gave it to her. Like because she drinks so often, she's like, I could have and just completely slipped my mind, but she didn't think so. So she ends up texting Catherine in the morning, but she doesn't want her to know that she was like looking in her place, right? So she's like asking if she's gonna come over and they were gonna have coffee or anything. Nothing. So she's like, all right, maybe she's just sleeping off yesterday. Like I'm not gonna trip about it too much. Then Boone comes over, and he's chit-chatting with her, and she's like, hey Boone, like did you hear anything weird last night? And he's like a scream, like a woman scream. So now Casey's like, okay, I'm not making this up. Like something happened. Okay, so now Casey is like convinced that she needs to do something. So So this chick waits until Tom leaves and she creeps inside their house because at this point she's already been like sending a couple more messages to Catherine. Nothing. So she creeps inside the house to see what's going on and if there's any like clues or whatever. She goes inside. She sees Catherine's ring, her wedding ring. She sees it, and she also sees that all Catherine's stuff is there. Everything's like, I mean, there's nothing out of place. There's no broken glass. There's no like signs of a fight, like really nothing. So she's like, am I tripping or what? She remembers the laptop. So she goes into the laptop, right? And she looks at the history and she sees that the history was somebody was searching Casey and was searching like the lake, and some other searches popped up. Well, at some point over like the last 2 summers, there was some missing girls. There's 3 of them. Some girls went missing, all within the age of like, I want to say like 19 to like 22. They were very young. And she's like, okay, maybe Catherine was looking it up because of like the media and the press and, you know, just like wanting to see what's going on. Or maybe she suspects it was her husband. Like, you know, like Casey's mind is just going all over the place. So she ends up like lurking too much in the house, and she thinks she's putting everything away, but she hears Tom and she hears his car rolling up and she's like, oh my god, like I have to get out of this house. She doesn't know what to do. So right before he's about to approach the door, she hears Boone's talking to him and asking questions, and she's like, okay, perfect, like I can get up out of here. So she ends up like creeping out, right? And then like as Tom goes inside, Boone pulls his boat around and he's like, get in. So she jumps in and he's like, what were you doing in there? He's like, I saw you from, I was outside and I saw you creeping in, but what were you doing in there? And she's like, you have to see this. Like it was, oh, because while she was in the house, she called Catherine's phone and the phone was inside. It was in the, like a drawer or like in the nightstand or something. So she's like, he did something to Catherine, like I already know. And he's like, okay, let's just calm down. He says, let's talk about this, whatever. So she starts telling him everything that she saw. And he's like, look, I used to be a cop, but Casey already knew that because she was like searching Boone. So apparently Boone's background is he was a cop. I think it was in Chicago, or like, yeah, I think it was Chicago. Or no, it was New York. Yeah, it was New York. Anyway, he was a cop at some point, and then his wife passed away. And she was very young. They were like, you know, young. It's only been like a year, 2 years or so. And yeah, a year, kind of like her. And his wife passed away. She fell down the stairs and just died. So he tells her, I know a detective that we can get out here and we can tell her what's going on. I trust her. So at this point, like, she's like, well, I don't know. Let's see what's gonna happen. Well, she's like, you know what? I'm gonna download Mixer. Like, I'm just gonna see like what's up. If there's anything, if Catherine's posted anything, because like obviously Catherine's gonna be on it to promote like her husband's, you know, projects, like his brand. So in case he's like not even on social media. So she gets on there and she sees that Catherine posted something that day, and it's her apartment, and she's like back home or whatever, like kind of indicating that she left the lake house. But by this point, I mean, Casey knows like that's not true because your phone is inside your house, like something's up. So she's like picking apart the photo, and it also has location. So the location is like, you're here, but then how are you home? So Casey's just thinking all this stuff, and she's like, you know, let's just see what happens, and you know, maybe it's nothing, but they end up getting the detective involved, right? So the detective, she tells her what's going on. The detective's like, I don't even want to hear that you went in that house. anything that you saw or found, it was obtained illegally. Like, I don't even want to know this. And so she's like, well, what do we do? Like, we can't find Catherine, and all this is going on. Like, you know, it looks sketchy. So the detective is like, look, we cannot tell Tom anything. She's like, go question him, go look. You're gonna see that the phone is in there, and he's pretending that she's home and whatever. She even calls her cousin Marnie at one point, and she's like, Marnie, go to their apartments or their loft or whatever. Speak to the doorman and see if Catherine's been there. Doorman says no. He's like, you know, Miss Royce isn't here or whatever. So Marnie calls back and she's like, look, I really think that you need to let this go. Like, I really, really think you need to let this go. The mom is already calling Casey and she's like, Marnie told me what's going on. You need to just stay out of people's business. So Casey's like, she just feels like she's on her own. She's like, you guys don't get it. I'm gonna find out what happened. And the mom is like, is this because of Len? She's like, it's not because of Len, but it is because of Len. And like, poor Casey, like, she's just like going over all this stuff and she's reminding herself of Len and all these little things, right? Well, she's talking to the detective, and the detective says, look, we cannot let anything out because she goes, remember those girls, the missing girls? In Casey's like, yeah, you know, I remember this happened, and on the next town over, one of the girls went missing, whatever. She's like, yeah. She says, well, if Tom is a suspect, she's like, because they're thinking about it, like, they just moved in here, and when Tom and Catherine had went over, they had mentioned before, like, you know, that because Eli, the guy that's lived there forever, he had asked them, like, so why did y'all pick Lake Green? Like, most people don't even realize it's out here and it's so small or whatever. They're like, well, we went to a few other lakes, like, in the area, but we fell in love with this place. And Catherine's like, well, Tom really wanted to move out here and you know, whatever. So now Casey, her gears are just going. Casey's like, that's why they moved out here, because they've been out here before when he had done something to those girls. So the detective says, just let me do my job, Casey. Stay out of it. Just like impossible for Casey, right? So they end up, detective leaves, and Casey can't let it go. Well, she's like confronting Tom at some point. They get into it, and it's like this whole mess. So, you know, she's like forced to stay out of it and mind her business or whatever. So she starts getting really close with Boone. Now they're doing their own detective work. They're like, you know, let's go out and like, let's find those girls' families and see, you know, what's going on, if they know anything, if we hear anything, you know, just they're trying to do their own little investigative work. You know, one of the girls, she had her family like owned like a convenience store, so they go out there to that convenience store, and Boone and Casey are just getting closer, and they're like, you know, Casey's really feeling him. So they end up doing all that, right? Well, when they get back to the lake house, they're still spying on Tom, and they see Tom taking like a bag, and he's like going to the neighbor's house, and those people aren't home, like they're not there, and he's just kind of like, okay, this is weird or whatever. Her and Boone are just like, what's he doing over there? So of course they keep spying. Well, her and Boone are like getting close. When she was in their house, there was another call coming in to Catherine's phone, and Casey took a picture of it. So while her and Boone are talking, she's like, there was another number trying to contact Catherine. She goes, what if I call that number? Like, maybe Catherine's fine, and she's like with a friend, and she's like calling her own phone to like see if Tom will pick up or like whatever. And Boone's like, let's just leave it alone. So Casey's like, no, like I want to know, like I want to know if there's other people or something we can do. So she calls the number that she had taken a picture of. It's Boone's phone. Boone's phone starts ringing, and Casey's like, what the hell did you do to Catherine? What's going on? You said you didn't even know her. Like, you just came out here and you're, you know, at the neighbors. Like, what's going on? He goes, look, she was out here before before you came out here. She was out here. He goes, yes, we talked. We started getting to know each other. Nothing happened, but we had a little thing going on, and now Casey's thinking, she's like, that's why she was in the water, huh? She's like, because she was leaving your place. She was swimming back home. And he's like, yes, but it wasn't anything like that. She came over and she told me that she wasn't going to be cheating on Tom. She didn't want to do this. So Casey's like, forget it. Like, I don't even trust you. She's like, get out, dude, get out. He's like, I didn't do anything. So now Casey starts digging into like, what really happened to your wife? Like, she just fell down the stairs. Like, what happened? Like, did you do something? Are you the person that did something to these girls? Like, her mind's racing, and she's like, get out, get out, get out. So Boone's like, please, like, let's talk. And no, throws him out. So now Casey's at this point where she doesn't know who to trust. She ends up calling the detective, and she's telling her like all these things that she's thinking. And she had bagged up some. She asked the detective if she could give her some stuff. She bagged up some glass, the glass that Catherine broke when they were outside and she like fell over or whatever, because she's like, what if Tom is poisoning her or whatever? So she calls the detective and she's like, hey, remember that glass I gave you like when you were here? She said, have you tested it? She's like, we're still waiting on those results. And she's like, well, what do you think about Boone? You think something happened to his wife? Do you think he did something and he's the new person out here? And detective, her name's Wilma, she's like, she shuts it down. She's like, Casey, you know what you're talking about. I've known him forever. We knew each other since we were kids. Then the police academy and so on. She's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I need you to just back off. Let me do my job. So at this point, Casey's just like, I feel like I have nobody. I feel like nobody's listening to me. So fast forward. Now she's thinking it's Boone. And she's like, you know what? I'm just going to follow Tom and I'm just going to figure this out. Like, I'm tired of all this guessing. I'm tired of all this, whatever. I need to get to the bottom of this because poor Catherine, like, we don't know if she was just another victim, like one of those girls. Like, what are we gonna do? So she ends up seeing that Tom went back over to that house, and she's like, no, something's going on. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to think, but she sees Tom leave that house and then he takes off. So she's like, perfect. I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna see what he's been up to. She goes in there. Kind of dark, whatever. She's looking around, and what does she see? She sees Catherine tied up, hogtied, and she's like, "Oh my God, Catherine!" And she's looking at her, and she's got like dry lips. She looks just like older. She says that like her gray, like her skin is like gray. Her complexion is just weird. Like she even has like some acne, and like her body, like she just looks completely different. And then she like smells that clearly she's gone to the bathroom on herself. And she's like, oh my God, Catherine. And Catherine's just like looking at her all weak. She doesn't know what to think. And I'm gonna get you out of here and whatever. And then she hears behind her Tom. He's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm not gonna leave her like this. He's like, you don't understand. Listen to me. So they start going at it. He's like, please listen to me. He goes, that is not Catherine. I don't know who that is, but it's not Catherine. And she's been super weird for a few days, and I don't know what to do. And he's like, please. And she's just like, what's wrong with you? And she looks over, and Catherine's smiling, like this creepy smile. So Casey's like, oh my gosh, this has only been like 3 days, right? So she's looking at her, and she's starting to think about it. Like, she's like, how would she look so different in 3 days, right? Like, and she's like wondering, like, did you poison her? Like, what happened? So she's looking at her. Wow. And Catherine says, like, something creepy along the lines of just like, yeah, like, she goes, I'm not Catherine or whatever. And she is just looking at her, and then she goes, well, who is it? And then she goes, it's me, Len. And Casey's like, why are you pretending to be my dead husband? Like, what's wrong with you? She's like, you're really Len? She's like, okay, what? Tell me something. And then Catherine, Len, whatever, speaks and says, oh, you really want to go there, see? So now Casey's like convinced. Like she's like, I don't know if this is actually Len, but I need to know. She tells Tom, please get out. And he's like, no, you cannot be alone with her. You don't understand it. And you better not untie her. Like, she is not well. Like, something's wrong. And Casey's like, if it's my husband, I need to know. Like, I need to talk to her. So she ends up sitting with Catherine, and Catherine's just like trolling her. Like, just think like The Exorcist, right? Like, it's like that movie. Like, she's just saying all this weird stuff and speaking in whatever, and then she goes back to being Len and whatever. So finally they get to a point where she's like, you're gonna come with me. Like, you're coming to my place. Like, we're gonna go talk at home. She like manages to lock Tom like in a closet or something, and then she like gets Catherine, Len, it's still tied, but like she controls it and like takes Catherine, Len over to her place, and that's who's tied up, right? This whole time you don't know if she's got Tom tied up or if she's got Boone tied up, but it's Catherine. So she's like, talk to me. And Len's like, you know, I still love you even though you killed me. And she's like, you drowned. And he's like, yeah, but. So now we're gonna flash back to what actually happened to Len. Okay, so Len and Catherine, they enjoy their Sundays and like just their time together. They like to go out on the lake, they fish, and they just talk, and you know, they do their thing, right? And they hang out outside, they drink, they're having a good time. And well, Catherine doesn't have, or sorry, Casey doesn't have the alcohol dependency problem. Like, this is just like them chilling, right? At this point. So she's there, and they were gonna do something that required a lighter. I think they were like making something outside. I don't remember what it was, but he tells her, hey, go inside and get that lighter. It's in my fishing box. So she's like, okay, no problem. And she goes down there to the basement, and she gets the box, and she's like, the lighter's not in here. Like, she starts kind of fumbling around, and she sees like a bandana, and the bandana's got like leaves or something. And she's like, what is this? And she opens it, and there's 3 IDs, the girls, a lock of hair, and like weird little things, mementos that he took from his, you know, crime. So she immediately is just like, no, like denial. Her head is spinning. I mean, she's freaking out, but she realizes it. Like, that's, you know, like, it's you. Like, you're the one doing this. She starts going over it in her head, and she's realizing that like the times, like when these things happened, like when each girl went missing, she was like, yeah. Oh, because she has a calendar in her phone. Since they both travel a lot for work, she kind of puts like dates when he's going to be out, when she's going to be out, or whatever. She pulls out her phone and she starts looking, and she's like, I wasn't with him, and he was supposed to be in LA. She's like, but I don't know that he was ever actually in LA. Like, how would I know that? So then, while she's in the basement, she starts calling the hotels that he would have been at, and she says, you know, this, you know, his name, Len, whatever. She's like, was he there? She said, well, the reservation was made, but nobody ever checked in. All 3 times. So now she's just like, it was you. And she thinks like, I'm sorry, that's my cat. My cat's eating. Okay, so she's thinking, that was you. Like, you did this, right? So she's like, okay, I'm going to go to the police. I'm gonna put this in my bag. I'm gonna act like everything's cool. I'm gonna go to the cops. And then she's like, but I'm such a public figure that this will ruin me. This will ruin my career. This will ruin everything. People are gonna think that I knew, or I'm an accomplice, or worse, they're gonna be like, how could she not know? Like, just all these thoughts are going through her mind, right? She's like, okay. So she creates a plan. She goes upstairs and she's like, no, babe, there was no lighter. Like, you wanna just kind of hang around? He's like, yeah, that's fine. Cool, whatever. So it kind of flashes back a lot because she was like in this play where like that's where she got the idea, whatever, this movie that she did or whatever it was. So she's getting allergy pills and she's crushing them up and putting them in his drink, handing him a drink. So by this point he's a couple drinks in and it's already the evening, sun's gone down, and she's like, babe, let's go out on the water. And he's like, right now? Like, no. He's like, I don't feel good. She's like, please, come on. Like, it's still beautiful. The sun's barely going down. We can catch the sunset. He's like, no, like, I don't. He's like, I don't feel good. And she's like, come on, babe. But he's like, fine. Goes out there with her. And they're chit-chatting. And she reveals what she knows. And he kind of laughs. And he's just like, I couldn't help myself. He's like, I would never hurt you, see. Like, I love you. I would never do anything to you. She pushes him over and just watches him go down. And he's, you know, on this medication and drinking. It's like he's inebriated. He can't get up, whatever. And that's when she leaves the boat. She swims back and she puts her clothes in the dryer. She acts like if nothing ever happened, and she goes to sleep. Well, she drinks and then she goes to sleep. And that's kind of like where you see like the start of her habit and so on. So it was her, and she knew about it, but she's just been living with this, and that's why she's developed this problem, because she's like, these girls don't have, or the girls' families, like, they don't have closure, and I've just been holding on to this and just all the release. And she's talking to Len, and she's telling him, like, how did this happen? Like, how are you in Catherine's body? And he's like, well, that's the thing, see? So Marnie, when she's talking to Marnie, she has these flashbacks where Marnie would always say that the lake was haunted. She hated going out there when they were kids. And then at some point, Eli had said the same, like these like folklore stories. But Casey's like, I don't believe in any of that. Sure enough, there is those, the lake lore is, it's true. So he tells her, he's like, see, when you pass away in the water, like in the lake, you don't actually like go, like you're kind of like in a limbo, right? So he says that when Catherine got in that water, that's when he grabbed on and jumped inside of her. And he's kind of explaining how it's like a slow kind of a progression, right? So it took like the 2 days for it to fully manifest, and then by like the third day it was like, you know, like he's fully inside of her. That's why the whole thing happened with Tom or whatever, because she was still feeling like part of her and him were meshing together, and she didn't really know what to do or whatever, right? So she's telling Len, like, you know, I'm gonna kill you, and I'm just like, I'm gonna do it. And he's like, well, if you do it, then you actually did that to Catherine. You ready to go to jail? So she's battling with this. She doesn't know how to get rid of him. So she ends up taking him out on the lake, and she's like, show me where you put those girls, because by now she's kind of figured like that's why we're here, that's why you didn't want to leave, because you put those girls in the water. And he's like, no. And she's like, I will let you go. Catherine has so much money, you can get away with it, you can change your appearance, and I will get you out of here. I just want to give these families closure. You're already dead, like, you're not here anymore. She's like, I will take the fault for everything. I will take because she had hid away the evidence and like the mementos. So she's like, I will take this to the police. Like, I will deal with all of it. You can get out. I just want to give these girls closure. So she ends up like pretty much tricking him, taking Catherine like down into the water with her, and she just somehow or another she gets Len into her and lets Catherine go free. And when Catherine's like back to Catherine, like Catherine goes and gets help and whatever, like she starts to realize that like something's happened, and she goes to get help or whatever. So Len is like, I've been tricked, whatever. So Catherine gets help. We get Casey home, and they kind of talk about all of it. And Catherine's telling her about how, it felt. And she's like, I was getting all these memories. Like, I know what happened. Like, he showed me what you did. And, it's just one of those things where she's like, I get it. And they all kind of work together with Tom and with Boone and everybody to kind of figure out, like, what they're going to say to the cops and so on. And then we get the redemption with Boone. Boone finally tells Casey, like, now that it's out, like, you realize I wasn't the one doing anything to Catherine or those girls. Let me tell you what actually happened with my wife. He's like, the reason it looks so suspicious is because my wife actually offed herself. She left a letter, like a note, and he's like, I was working all the time because he was in the PD. He's like, I was working all the time. Oh, and he was a drinker, so he's sober. And Casey picked it up, so they were like never supposed to like be together, right? Like it was like completely against it. He's in AA, it's a whole thing, right? So he's like, I was drinking all the time and going out with the guys after work, and I was working in the case, and everything came first, but I didn't realize how sick she was. I didn't realize how bad her depression had got. He's like, I didn't even notice. So she left me a note. He's like, and then she did that to herself. So I called Detective Wilma because they were friends. And he was like, I can't let her family know. They'll be devastated that she did this. Like, nobody will understand that she wasn't well. Like, it's just gonna look like so selfish, or he just didn't want anyone to think bad of her. He's like, she wasn't a bad person. She just had a lot of problems. So that's why everything looks so suspicious. But Wilma was the one who covered everything up. The note, they burned it and said, no, we're clearing him. There's nothing suspicious here. So Wilma came through, and that's why she was like so irritated with Casey, because she's like, you don't even know anything. Like, this was not on Boone. So that kind of gets cleared up, and then you kind of see that like they're all hanging out together sober. Like, they spend New Year's together and at the lake house and with all the family, and it's just kind of like a good time for everyone to be together. So the whole thing with Boone, she's Casey's thinking about just everything that's happened over the last couple days, and she's thinking like, okay, yes, Len was able to take Catherine's body, but Catherine had mentioned she was already feeling that way. That's why her body froze up in the water, right? Because she's like, well, it doesn't necessarily explain how because Catherine passed. Catherine was gone. Like, she was able to come back because her spirit was staying alive in the lake, right? And that moment of afterlife, or partially still alive, moving into the afterlife, is when Len was able to creep in, right? So Catherine's spirit was still in the water, and Casey's like, what happened to Catherine? So she calls Wilma, and she's like, Wilma, can you check that glass? Like, because nobody thought they needed to do it anymore, because part of the story was that Catherine had went off on a hike and she'd got lost, and that's why they didn't know where she was, and then Tom found her or whatever, because they didn't want to tell her the whole story, obviously, right? It sounds crazy. So she finds that there was traces of poison in the glass. He was actually doing those things. Like, Casey wasn't completely crazy. So Catherine was poisoned. She passed in the lake. Her spirit's still around, right? Weird afterlife stuff. Now we got rid of Tom. So now it's Boone and Casey are kind of having their thing, and she's invited her, because all this was going on in like October. So it's now New Year, right? New Year's Eve and stuff. So we've got like the mom and Marnie and Catherine's there, and Boone and Casey, and they're all sober, and they're all like hanging out, toasting with like their ginger ales or whatever it is they had. And so it was just like a really nice way to end the book. Everybody's happy. I mean, well, not Tom and Len, right? Or the poor victims. But as far as the survivors, and it just shows that Casey's gonna stay sober, and she's like hyper vigilant, and like it just all like sort of worked out. So I really loved the book, and I left out a lot of details, and I kind of like ran through it just because I didn't take any notes. or anything, and usually I like to so that I don't go off the rails. But yeah, it was a really good book. I really loved it. Um, like I said in the beginning, like I did read it on an airplane. Like that's how fast it's like got through it because it was so good. But if you made it this far in the story, I hope that you liked it. If you fell asleep, I mean, that's cool too. That's why I'm doing this, because I want to help people fall asleep and listen to books that they're never going to read, or I don't know. So I'll catch you on the next one, bookworms.